In the winter of 1911, a young woman named Natalia Ritsenko gave birth alone in her family's house outside Poltava. The child lived for 2 hours. There was no priest, no time, no baptism. She buried the child herself in the frozen ground at the edge of the property, without ceremony, without a name, without the words that should have been spoken over it. 3 nights later, she woke to a sound outside her window. Small, high, not quite crying and not quite whine, something between the two that she recognized immediately and completely without having heard it before. She lay still and listened. It moved around the house slowly, as if looking for a way in. Then it stopped. Then silence. She did not sleep again that night. It came back the following night, and the night after. Always the same circuit of the house, always the same small high sound, always stopping at the same window, the window of the room where she had given birth. Her mother, who had come to stay with her, heard it on the 4th night and said nothing until morning. Then she said, "We need to give it a name. We should have given it a name before we put it in the ground. We need to do it now." The Potercha, from the Old Slavic word meaning the lost one, the wandering one, was distinct from the Navki in one important way. The Navki flew in groups, moved together, existed in the collective space between the living world and the dead world. The Potercha was singular, one child, one spirit, attached to one specific place and one specific family. It did not fly. It walked or moved in some way that resembled walking, that kept it close to the ground, close to the house where it had briefly lived, close to the family that had not completed the rituals that would have released it. It was small, the accounts said, the size of the child it had been, and it made a sound that every mother who had lost a child without baptism recognized, across different regions and different centuries, described with the same word, heartbreaking. It wanted one thing, not blood, not vitality, not life force, a name. The name it had never been given, the formal reception into the human community that baptism represented, the acknowledgement that it had existed and that its existence had mattered. Without a name, it could not move on. Without acknowledgement, it could not leave. It circled the house because the house was the only place it knew. It made its sound because sound was the only way it could ask for what it needed. In ethnographic records from the Chernihiv region collected in the 1880s, there are 27 accounts of Potercha. In 24 of the 27 cases, the haunting had begun within 3 days of the child's death. In all 27 cases, the haunting had ended when the family performed a specific ritual, standing at the grave, speaking the child's name aloud, completing the formal words of reception that baptism would have provided. In 3 of the 27 cases, the family had waited too long. More than a year had passed before they performed the ritual. In those 3 cases, the ethnographer noted something unusual. The families described the Potercha's sound as having changed over that year, having become less like an infant's cry and more like something else, something older, as if the child inside it had continued to grow in the space between worlds, had aged in the dark, had become something that was no longer quite what it had been when it started circling the house. The ritual was simple. You went to the grave, you stood over it, you spoke the name you had chosen or would have chosen. It did not matter that it had never been used. It mattered that you chose it now and said it clearly. You said, "This was your name. You were here. You were real. We are sorry we did not say this sooner." You said the words of welcome that baptism used, or as close to them as you could remember. You told the child it could go. Natalia Ritsenko went to the grave on the 5th day, in the snow, with her mother standing a few steps behind her. She had chosen a name, the name she had planned to give the child if it had lived, the name she had been carrying for months before the birth. She said it over the frozen ground. She said the words her mother told her to say. She said, "You were here. I know you were here. I am sorry I did not say this before I put you in the ground. You can go now. You were loved." The sound did not come that night. It did not come the following night. It did not come again. Natalia told her daughter about it 20 years later, when the daughter was old enough to understand. She said, "The worst part was not the sound itself. The worst part was knowing what the sound was asking for and knowing I had the thing it was asking for and had simply not given it. It was asking for so little. It only wanted to be named. That was all. That was always all." The Potercha tradition carries within it something that the more dramatic Slavic spirits do not: a direct moral instruction that requires no interpretation. Baptize your children, name them, receive them formally into the world, not as religious obligation, not as social performance, but as an act of recognition and acknowledgement that this small person has arrived, that it exists, that it matters, that the world knows it is here. The Potercha exists because of failures of acknowledgement. It is the spirit of the unacknowledged, of the ones who arrived and were not received, who existed briefly and were not recognized, who needed only a name and did not receive one in time. It does not blame. It does not punish. It asks. In the only way available to something that never learned words, in the small high sound that every parent who has heard it has described the same way, it asks for the one thing that costs nothing to give and means everything to receive. Stand over the graves of the ones who did not get names. Speak the names they should have had. Tell them they were here. Tell them they were real. Tell them they were loved. The sound outside the window will stop. It always stops when someone finally says the words. It has been waiting for the words since the first night it circled the house. It will wait as long as it must. It is very patient. It has nowhere else to go.